Recording to start.
Quite a minute and a half.
Yeah. When I came in, they were like, they said.
We're back in open session with apologies to those who had to wait in the hallway. Moving on in the agenda to item 5, agreement with Baptist Church for use of parking lot. County Administrator, would you like to address that, please?
Thank you very much. I know this one's not a big one, but I do think this is an important one to get through. As many of you know, we do lease the Baptist Church parking lot down on Court Street. We've had a long-standing agreement to lease that for $500 a month. And working with the Baptist Church, they have agreed to reduce that to $250 a month for the next 5 years, in consideration of the fact that we paved it. It is important to them that we do note this and get this corrected as soon as possible. As they just paved it, we need to do this retro to September 1st. So. Okay.
Okay, Mr. Healy.
Yeah, I think as I spoke to one of the elders there, it was important to them that they, so everybody knew that they wanted to have an interest in themselves, that they just weren't looking for a free ride from the county there.
Correct.
Thank you.
Gretchen?
I'll move.
There's a motion. Is there a second? Thank you, Mr. Curran. Any further discussion on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's carried.
Thank you.
Just a note.
Sir.
DPW did that parking lot and lined it, so that was our job.
Looks good. Looks very good. It was chaos down there before those lines.
It was.
Mr. Barnes? Microphone, please, sorry.
I think it's a great idea that was done, but I don't remember ever anybody coming to us asking for approval.
I do.
Yeah, we did. That was a long time ago.
How long ago? 10 years?
Probably all of that. We tried to buy it at one time.
Well, I have no problem with it. I just don't remember
Yeah.
anybody coming for approval to do it, and then all of a sudden it's being done.
At one time, we went down the road to purchase the whole thing, the building and the parking lot. They got very offended, and so there was no communication for a couple of years, and then, I can't tell you the year, but we have an agreement with them. Chris can remember when it was, but it's been a while.
Yeah, I knew we were paying
Predates me
$500
working here,
a
probably
month.
25 years.
All right. I'm sure the journal clerk of the board, administrator, somebody could dig that up and find out when the approval was made. Did get a message on YouTube that for those of us who don't have our microphones on, they can't hear what we're saying, and the closed caption and isn't picking it up. It was not my wife. My wife is working. She's got better things to do than listen to us. All right, so could one of you let Tom know that we're ready for him? And let's see if we can check something off that's quick here. Motion to take the agenda out of order and take item 7 before item 6. Thank you, Mr. Ricky. Seconded by Legislator Root. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? And that's carried. Okay, item 7 states 2026 committee structure and monthly schedule. So the reason this is on here is just to get people thinking between now and the new board. If any of you have any thoughts on A, whether you want to keep the same committees that we have now, fold any existing committees into other committees, or create new committees, for that matter. Now would be the time to start talking about that between now and the end of the year. So I'm not advocating for anything personally. I know it's been discussed in the past that, for instance, personnel could get folded into Ways and Means, or resource management could get folded into DPW, or budget could just get blown up and all of the budget work could get folded into Ways and Means as well. So, like I said, I'm not advocating for anything. If anyone has any thoughts on the subject, we don't have to talk about it today, but start thinking about it. The second portion of that is I'm interested to know the board's pleasure on our actual schedule, committee meeting schedule when we get into the next term. Those of you who are first termers won't remember that when we second termers started, we had Monday committee meetings and Wednesday board meetings. Monday committee meetings started at 9 or 10 in the morning, and they went through lunch and finished in the afternoon. So there are pluses and minuses to that, and it was discussed when we changed everything to Wednesdays. You remember that, Gary. I think you were an advocate for that. There's benefits to both sides. I personally see a benefit to stretching out the amount of time we have for committee meetings. I think it seems to happen more and more where there's so much discussion that could be happening that we feel, for better or worse, we feel like we don't have time to have in our regular committee structure. When I came in as chair 2 years ago or whatever it was, we talked about the opportunity for committee chairs to be holding work sessions outside of their normal committee meetings, with the hope that we could have those discussions in that format, but that hasn't really come to pass, largely. So again, this is just something I would hope the board would consider thinking about, and maybe we can bring that back up in October, and if anybody has any thoughts on the subject, we can address it then. Any comments for now? Okay. All right, so that checks off 7. Tom and Dean, sorry for that minute and a half executive session. All right, so DPW shop and infrastructure. This is, I don't know who wants to start this, but the purpose of the discussion today is to get an update from the county treasurer about research she's done on bonding and what that actually might look like for the board. We need to talk a little bit about the timing of all this, and really all this folds into, can't be a huge discussion, but it needs to be a consideration when we start talking about the tentative budget and how the board wants to tackle managing funding, payments in relation to the DPW shop project, and how that affects the entirety of the county budget. So I think let's just throw Terry right into the fire here. And if you feel more comfortable, Terry, staying back there, you can stay back there, whatever you prefer.
Yeah, depending on questions, this might be easier if I have to dig, so. I will pass out a few things though before we get started.
And Terry, your microphone isn't working. There you go.
You want one? Yeah, we can share here.
Thank you, ma'am.
Did I not have enough? You guys are gonna be. Me to come up here. So, okay, so what you have in front of you is, I don't wanna have my back. 3 scenarios for borrowing $42 million, which is a number that, we had a meeting yesterday with Tom and Dean and Chris and Tim, Jen and I, about the cost. And that was the cost that ended up being developed through Hunt and Tom. That, nets out a couple grants that we got for a couple of the sewer projects. So this is, and Tom can speak more on that. But the bottom line is like 41.2, I think. So we went with $42 million. I had some other scenarios, but after yesterday's meeting in the afternoon, we ended up going with 42 million. So the purple, the first page, is about just straight up bonding, which is not something I recommend, but I wanted to give you the picture on if you just went out for a bond in 2025. There are a couple details with going out to the market. The bids are not going to be opened until October, and they're not going to be approved or reviewed by the committees until November. So there's probably a really short window of time, and we probably cannot get any borrowing done in '25, but it could happen early of '26. But I based this scenario on if we could get some money this year. So this one is taking $42 million and going out to the market in '25 for a 30-year mortgage, basically, 30-year bond. In this scenario, the annual payments are about $2.7 million that would begin in 2026. And that would go for the life of the bond until 2025. There's some more information on here about the average payment over the 30 years because it fluctuates. This particular scenario was built at 5%, which is what the market is for a bond right now today. So that can obviously change. With average payments over the years of $2.732 million, total issuance, and I spelled that wrong, I'm sorry, is $81.9 million. Almost $82 million for the project. The interest that you would pay over 30 years would be almost $40 million. So,
Yeah, Terry, I have a question. Could you explain to us what's actually covered in that 42 million? I know it's not just our DPW building, it's the whole IDA thing with the,
I think Tom can explain that. There is $3.5 million in there for our portion of the infrastructure to the site. But we did not, we backed out the $3.5 million that is the infrastructure for Area 51. So Tom can take it from there.
Sure. You can help me, Terry. So yeah, we put together a spreadsheet yesterday with Hunt's help, and basically we added all the base bid numbers that they're estimating, and these are all estimates at this point in time. So base bid with alternatives. We have fire alarm. Our estimate is $650,000. We're still working with Stark to try and get a hard number on that. Obviously, by November meeting, we're hoping to have all of the numbers so we can present them to you. Building controls, all of this other stuff is not in the prime contracts. So you got fire alarm, you got building HVAC controls. Again, Stark, that's about $400,000, and those were based on what we just spent for this building. Construction management, inspection, which I'm highly recommending. I know the jail did not have it, but we highly recommend it. We're estimating about 1.4 million. Hunt's contract administration, oversight for DPW facility and the wastewater treatment facility would come in around 3 million, give or take. Special inspections, testing for the DPW and wastewater treatment facility is around $1 million. Truck storage, the fabric building yet to be built. If you recall from our site plan, basically the base bid is the shop and all of the works around it, and then add alternates are the large equipment storage, the three-sided pole barn, and then the fabric structure. That's the extra, that's the $1 million for the truck storage that would be bid later on. Wastewater treatment facility with connection to the building is about 3.5 million. So everything DPW facility-wise is about 38 million. And then you got the water tank distribution that we've talked about, putting the tank up on the hill, connecting it with a little building for the rechlorination and monitoring, and water line halfway around County Route 51. That adds about $4.4 million with the soft costs. You take out the grants that we know we have in hand today, which is about $1.24 million. That gives us $41,446,000.
Is the line, the sewer line from the 51 to that, none of that's included
No,
then?
we did
Okay.
not include that yet.
Okay, well, that's why, that
Yep.
was my question, is how
Yes.
much was
Yes,
peripheral and,
correct.
yeah, okay. But the facility to do the sewer is gonna be very important. I mean, it's a win-win on the other end if
That is correct.
the
It
other line was in.
allows the housing development if
That's what I'm
that
saying.
needs to go on, the
Yeah,
hotel.
so it's a cost
That's correct.
that is gonna cover more than just the DPW building.
That is
So,
correct, Dwight.
Okay, thank you.
benefit potential economic development in the area additionally,
Absolutely.
right?
The whole
It's good-
area.
It's good for everybody. It's good for Friendship, it's good for Belmont, it's good for the county.
Tom, the package plant that's been designed now, could it handle all that, or it would need to be
Absolutely.
expandable
No,
to
it would-
handle a housing development of that size or a
The
hotel?
size of the initial construction would be sized big enough for our facility, transportation, if we were to build that facility, in either the hotel and restaurants or the housing complex, and that's staged as well. So it could handle the majority of everything. Obviously, if they get full build out with, I think it was 400 houses or units or 200, something like that. In additional phases, we may have to expand, but it wouldn't be a full complex expansion. It would be just parts of the treatment facility itself.
Thank you.
And it's fair to note, I think, that the portion that Dwight is referring to is the $3.5 million plus contingency that's not included in this number, which would bring it up to like 46 million. So we've taken that out of this bonding scenario right now, so that we're just really dealing with what we need to do for the facility to meet those needs of that 42 million.
Thank you.
But that also meet that housing, the 200,
Won't meet it all.
It would be able to handle the facility, but does not include the collection system and the pump
To
station.
that.
To that.
okay. So, but I mean, obviously, 200 houses or residences are in that small of an area where you're probably not having to provide a lot of services over a long distance, and the increase in the tax base would all be beneficial too.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, so in this bond scenario, just taking out the bond straight up, it would be a 9.10% increase in your tax levy. So the second scenario is the blue sheet. The blue sheet is staggering the finances, 21 million upfront the first year, 21 million the following year or the year after, depending on, because that's one thing we do not have, is we do not have the cost financing phases of construction. You will not get that until everything else is completed. So we do not have those time frames about what money you need, but it costs between $75,000 and $100,000 to go out to borrow. So we were trying to stagger that to make sure that they had enough money to do the first few phases, and then you could reborrow for the finishing phases. So we looked at $21 million, borrowing in '25. That would mean that you would pay interest only in 2026. And then you would borrow again in probably either late '26 or early '27, the additional 21 million. And then you would end up bonding the entire project, depending on what the cost was, in '28. So this has a different feel for it. So you do interest only for the first year. That would be $787,500 in 2026. So you'd have to budget that in '26. It's about a 3.75 or 2.63% increase in the levy. That's at an interest rate of 3.75. Bands are a little bit less to borrow because you're not borrowing as much money, so the interest rate is a little bit less than when you bond. Like I said before, the bond rate is about 5% right now, and that, of course, is subject to change depending on the market. So then in 2027, you would have to budget $1.175 million. The following year in '28, you'd have to budget 2.4 almost, and then from '29 to '55, the budget amount would be $2.8 million. Overall, your average payments would be 2.6. We like to do level debt because then you know exactly what that payment is and it doesn't fluctuate. The total of this issuance was $79,800,000, and the total interest on this was $34,500,000. I will note too that any of this that we're gonna do, we only have an $8 million resolution on file now. That was that pre-planning resolution so that we could capture all the costs for the project from the beginning. We would need additional resolutions to be able to borrow more than that $8 million. So that will also have to take place. So then the scenario number 3 is the green page. And because it's late in the year and you might not borrow in '25, this is looking at borrowing in '26, anywhere between January and December of '26. So you would not have to make any kind of a budget adjustment for '26. You would make that budget adjustment for '27. And that would be $787,000 interest only. Some of these numbers are about the same, but they do fluctuate a little bit. And this would be borrowing the balance of the 42 million in 2028. So in 2028, your payment would go to 2,015,000, 29, $2.3 million, and then in 30 to 56, it would be $2.8 million. So I put on there also the impact to the tax levy. The first percentage increase to the levy is straight up what that payment reflects in an increase. The second column for the percentage increase in the levy is just the difference between one budget year to the other. That's the increase to your actual budget.
That's based on the 25 levy?
That is based on the 25 levy. It's estimated at about $300,000. For each $300,000 you put in the budget, it's 1% tax increase.
John?
So I'm sinking in now. So that's if we don't do anything to our budget on anything else.
Correct. This is just the impact of
So
this
we can
financing.
offset this impact with some cuts somewhere else,
That's what you
if
choose
we
to do,
choose
yeah.
to do. Okay, that's just,
The thing to remember too is the jail bond will not go off and you'll make your last payment in '29. So that will come off for the 2030 budget. I guess it's fair to note that it's about $1.1 million more than what will come off in '30. So
Say that again. So the jail bond payment's 1.6.
jail bond payment is 1.6. These payments will be 2.8. So,
So it'll help, but not.
but not, yes, correct.
Mr. Healy?
Thank you. So the term or the life of the financing of this project, I mean, we could potentially refinance it down the road at a lower rate.
Yep, you can look at refinancing after a bond after approximately 5 years.
So
So you'd
interest
have to
rates-
wait till you bond it.
Interest rates go down.
If interest rates go down, if they go up, you can, it will depend on what the market is right now. They, it can change by the time we go out. So
So you wouldn't expect it to be getting any worse.
I wouldn't expect, well, I don't really know what the percentage of interest on those will be, but you do have to remember that our financial position changes when you go out for $40 million. It changes our financial situation as
Overall,
well. So
yeah.
when you get to bonding, that could have an impact on some of that, but you don't know that
On
impact
a
until you
rating.
get there. Yep, you don't
Thank-
know till you get there. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
So Terry, of these options, not doing it, let's pretend that's not an option. Of these three options, which would you recommend to the board to consider most strongly?
Well, I would definitely recommend staggering the financing. I don't think it's in your best interest to go out and bond right off the bat. The board, when we did the courthouse, bonded right off the beginning, and we got stuck with, I don't want to say we got stuck, but we got stuck with that financing, when in reality, we had more money that we spent on that building that we couldn't bond because it was already bonded. So I would suggest the staggered or laddered financing, because then if you don't need the full $42 million in the end, you don't bond that. You make that payment of what you have left, and then you're only financing what you actually paid for the building, or the project, I should say, the project.
Yeah.
The building.
I think it's gonna be better as it goes along, because the feds are finally dropping the rate. So, that percentage that we may end up having to pay for interest should go down instead of up. So, because if you remember back a few years ago, the interest was, the Fed charged nothing. So if we get back, and our interest rate was low, when we refinanced, it actually went down on this last one, right?
Yeah, on our last one it did, but we're still right about 4%. So even the old ones that we've had for 20 years are still 4%
Yeah.
interest. So I mean, you can expect it to fluctuate a little bit, how much, it's a crapshoot.
Deb?
So Terry, looking at the green and the blue, they're both staggered. And it looks like they're pretty much the same, only the start date of when we start. One we would start in 2026, and the other one, we're pushing it out to 2027.
Correct.
It's the only difference that I can see here, so.
Right.
What would be the advantage of pushing it out to 2027 or 2026? Is there as far as budget-wise, do we need to have a discussion, and which would be better for us?
Well, the problem is that with the timing of review and everything, once that's done, it's gonna take 2 months at least. Because my expectation is you are not gonna be able to borrow money in '25. So that's why I did the '26 scenario, because I think this is more realistic, that you're gonna actually do financing in '26. So it shouldn't, I just can't see us borrowing money as quickly. By the time Tom gets to Public Works in November, and then, I don't know, you get 30 days to approve them? 45 days to approve them. So, I mean, I just don't see that happening this year. I mean, that's being truly honest.
Yeah,
'cause
but
I don't think
you
we're
show
gonna-
2026 and 2027, so you're pushing it out. Is that a,
That's budget-wise. That bottom part is budget-wise. I'm saying that you're gonna probably borrow in '26. Your first payment will be in '27.
2027?
Yes. So you'll have to budget it in '27.
Okay.
I mean, the benefit of that is it gets us 1 year closer to the jail bond falling
29,
off.
Yeah.
And it doesn't delay construction.
Shouldn't delay. Shouldn't delay.
So John touched on it, and we don't have time to really dive into it today, but this project isn't in a vacuum. So she's showing us this project's impact on the levy, if all else being equal across county government. Obviously, that's not the case. So, and this maybe is a question for the budget officer. While you're working away at this tentative, do you want an impression from the board on its appetite for raising the levy compared to finding cuts, as Mr. Ricky said, versus utilizing fund balance to support this project?
I think so. I think otherwise, we're running with the defaults that we have to meet, so, and that would mean cuts if you're gonna include this project.
Historically, you have brought to us, I'm going to say in the last, as long as you've been budget officer, you've brought us a tentative that's very close to the statutory cap, plus or minus a little bit, and that has enabled the board to be able to make adjustments they felt necessary without totally just blowing up the tentative.
And I think, is my impression of a budget officer is that we're obligated, budget officer, deputy budget officer, to bring you a tentative that is at or below the cap, because remember, the tentative is your default budget. So you might want all the projects in the world, but if you don't act on overriding the tax cap, you can't put them in the budget. There would be other statutory consequences to that. So we have to assume that the tentative will be at or below the cap. And then, as a board, you need to do other things if you want to add more money to it. You can't have a default that doesn't meet the default statutes.
You could, though, if the board passes the local law overriding the cap.
I think we'd have some discussions about that, but
I
yes.
don't think you can.
But
Yep.
Personally, I don't think that, because it's not our budget, it's your budget. I don't believe we can bring a budget that's over the cap. You have to do that, is what my understanding is. But
I agree with
never
the
done it
deputy
before,
treasurer.
so.
Yeah, we've never been in this situation before, but I do believe we've got to give you the most conservative budget. Obviously, if the board wants to do more and add more to it, we can help and structure that, but I think that you do those through amendments to the tentative, probably.
So that time in the bad old days when the budget officer came with a 20% increase or whatever it was, 20% rate increase, that was pre-cap?
Pre-cap.
Okay. All right,
Right.
so you'll be prepared, right, for the board, whatever the board decides, when we get the tentative in hand and we need to, whether we decide or not to decide to make significant amendments to the tentative. You'll be prepared for that.
I think we will be prepared to assist the board however you need us to assist you, and we'll be prepared to have a contingency in place with the tentative.
And just for the board's knowledge, what if we don't pass the tentative?
The tentative is not something you pass. The tentative is something that we file.
What if we don't enact the budget?
If you don't enact a final budget, the tentative is the budget for next
Okay.
year.
It will take, if you don't do something before December 20th, the tentative becomes the budget. You can make amendments between the tentative and the 20th that will change that budget. So then it's like tentative with amendments. But if you don't adopt that and actually vote on it, that tentative with amendments becomes the budget on December 20th.
Gotcha.
That's happened once since I've been here.
Okay. So moving forward, just time for the board to consider these, and Tom's going to come back to us in November after the bid opening with actual numbers, which will change your numbers a little bit, right? As far as costs associated with bonding.
Well, and prior to yesterday, I had worked up several different scenarios of dollar values. I did not have one done at 42 million. So we scrambled and got that done, but I had done 40, 33.5, and 30. So I have those numbers already. So if changes happen, we'll be able to tell you what that estimate is. You mentioned the other things that affect the budget. We also have a list going on that, about the biggest hits that we know of right now, so we have all that. But I think the safe thing is that you need to be able to consider what you're willing to use out of fund balance, and it, in my opinion, cannot be what you used last year. So I think you got some serious things you have to look at. So that's just my 2 cents.
All right, anything else before we move on? Thank you, ma'am. All right, sliding down to item 8, budget survey, budget hearings. So this was discussed at the last committee of the whole. We didn't have great attendance there. So just a quick recap. It's been our practice to hold budget hearings where department heads make themselves available to the board for questions and comments on their budget requests. Internally, there's been discussions that maybe there's a better way to do it because we didn't have great attendance or really participation either in the last couple of years at that. So we dusted off the old budget survey from 4 or 5 years ago, and I offered that up as a possible alternative to submit to the department heads to complete and for the board to review. And then if any questions or comments generally about their budgets and their, kind of future looking on what obstacles they're going to have budgetarily and otherwise, could be brought up either in a budget committee meeting, a committee of the whole, or within the committee's jurisdiction. I didn't get any feedback on the actual survey other than from the county administrator who brought forth some recommendations late last night, so they didn't make the agenda today. But if the board wants to continue down this path, maybe we can ask the county administrator to build something for us to consider to use. We're kind of in a time crunch here because we're getting close to the time where the tentative's going to be filed. And once the tentative's filed, any amendments that we want to make as a board have to go through that resolution. And if if we don't want 100 amendments to this tentative. So we want to make sure that the department heads have the opportunity to explain their budget requests, if possible, before the tentative's filed. So does anybody have any thoughts? We don't have to do this thing, by the way. We could just, go business as usual, and we could just call in department heads once we get the budget in front of us, call the department heads in if we have questions, skip the survey. They'd probably love skipping the survey. We could give them the survey, have them fill it out and see what lands. Whatever the board's preference is. My personal opinion was that I felt like, if not budgetarily, at least from a conceptual standpoint on county operations, I found the surveys beneficial last time we did it. So, thoughts? Mr. Havey?
I think it would be a good idea to try the survey, have it updated by the county administrator, and put it out there and see how that works this time. Clearly, what we were doing before didn't work as well as we would have liked, so something new might possibly be something we could try. Thank you.
Any other thoughts? Jan?
Well, I personally liked having the department heads come in. It gave some of us an opportunity to ask questions. Unfortunately, it didn't work because we had poor attendance by the legislators and very few questions were asked of the department heads. So it was really a waste of their time, which I felt really bad about because it was really our opportunity. We had a very concise budget that said exactly what they were spending on everything from phones to desks to computers to everything. And it gave us an opportunity to really do a deep look at their budgets and ask questions. But it didn't work because nobody asked questions. So the survey probably is a good idea. I think that with all the potential cuts, that it really gives them a chance to maybe explain to us how they're going to adjust for any of those cuts. So I mean, obviously, like I said, I preferred them coming in, but that's not working. So the survey looked good.
Other thoughts? Okay, let's do it. So, County Administrator, we don't need a committee of 15 crafting this survey, okay? So, can you prepare something for us that you think would be appropriate for the department heads and get it distributed and move forward?
I can do that. And did you want to try to set some time aside? Should you want to discuss the survey results with department heads?
Yeah, we'll utilize that October committee of the whole for that purpose.
November or October?
I think the discussion was October, but if
Okay,
we have,
my apologies, I wrote down November yesterday, so. Okay.
well, it's 2 versus 1. We can talk about that. I
Well, we
don't
just
think it
wanna make
matters to
sure
us so
we
long
get
as,
a good due date for them, so.
Jan?
Would November be too late? I would think it'd be nice to have it in October, so if there are any, when we do get the
Unfortunately, you're not
budget-
going to have any kind of a tentative in October. If you have any kind of a tentative budget, it's going to be the end of October. I am still waiting for a couple department budgets.
And that's not unusual, that it's something we did last year as well. We have until November 15th to file the tentative budget. We try to get that on your desks on a Wednesday because you're all here. We try to do a Ways and Means budget. The October calendar is a little problematic because there's that 5th Wednesday, so there's a big gap between meetings and that. So it's probably, you'll probably either get it late October or definitely no later than November 12th.
We can talk about it. We'll land on a date that is most appropriate.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, good there? All right, so agenda item 9 is executive session. We actually have 3 executive sessions, I should say 3 topics for executive session. But instead of going in, out, in, out, in, out, we're just going to enter executive session for the 3 reasons indicated in the agenda. If someone would like to make a motion to that effect. Thank you, Mr. Ricky, seconded by Legislator Havey. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, and we're in executive session.